Hi there, sixth graders. Okay, so we are this is the book that I introduced today in class, Tuesday in class. Um, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read it over again in case anybody was absent. So I'm going to start with just the beginning of this book. So if you're watching this video and you already heard me read this in class, then you don't need to watch this one. This is video number 1 of this book, but it is just in case anybody missed Tuesday's class. Okay, so the book that we were reading is called Margaret Peterson. It's by Margaret Peterson Haddix, and it is called Found. Now, there are some stickers covering that, so I know that it is called Found because I can see it on the spine. Okay, and this is a series of books called The Missing Books. This is part 1, book 1. Okay, so I'm going to read the first part to you today, which is what I read in class, Found by Margaret Haddix. All right. Sorry, it's a new book, so they're hard to turn pages. Okay, so this book has a prologue, and we're going to go ahead and read from there. Okay. It wasn't there. Then it was. Later, that was how Angela Dupree would describe the airplane over and over to one investigator after another, until she was told never to speak of it again. But when she first saw the plane that night, she wasn't thinking about mysteries or secrets. She was wondering how many mistakes she could make without getting fired. How many questions she dared ask before her supervisor, Monique, would explode. That's it! You're too stupid to work at SkyTrails Air. Get out of here. Angela had used a Post-it note to write down the code for standby passengers who'd received a seat assignment at the last minute, and she'd stuck it in her computer screen. To her computer screen. She knew she had, but somehow between the flight arriving from St. Louis and the one leaving for Chicago, the Post-it had vanished. Any minute now, she thought, some standby passenger would show up at the counter asking for a boarding pass, and Angela would be forced to turn to Monique Moore and mumble, what was that code again? And then Monique, who had perfect hair and perfect nails and a perfect tan and had probably been born knowing all the SkyTrails codes, would grit her teeth, narrow her eyes, and repeat the code in that slow, fake, patient voice she'd been using with Angela all night. The voice that said behind the words, I know you're severely mentally challenged, so I will try not to speak faster than the 1 word per minute you have to realize this is a real strain for me, but I am so vastly superior. Angela was not severely mentally challenged. She'd done fine in school and at SkyTrails orientation. It was just that this was her first actual day on the job, and Monique had been nasty from the very start. Every one of Monique's frowns and glares and insinuations kept making Angela feel more panicky and stupid. Sighing, Angela glanced up. She needed a break from staring at the computer screen, longing for a Post-it. She peered out at the passengers crowding the terminal, tired-looking faces sprawled in seats, dark-suited businessmen sprinting down the aisle. Which one of them would be standby flyer who'd rush up to the counter and ruin Angela's life? Generally speaking, Angela had always liked people. She wasn't used to seeing them as threats. She forced her gaze beyond the clumps of passengers to the huge plate glass window on the other side of the aisle. It was starting to get dark out, and Angela could see the runway lights twinkling in the distance. Runway, runaway, she thought vaguely, and then, had she blinked? Suddenly the lights were gone. No, she corrected herself, blocked. Suddenly there was a plane between Angela and the runway lights, an airplane rolling rapidly toward the terminal. Angela gasped. What now? Monique snarled, her voice thick with exasperation. That plane, Angela said, at gate 2B. I thought it... What was she supposed to say? Wasn't there? Appeared out of thin air? I thought it was going too fast and might run into the building. She finished in a rush because suddenly that seemed true too. She watched as the plane pulled to a stop, neatly aligned with the jetway. But it didn't. No worries. Monique whirled on Angela. Never, she began in a hushed, full voice of suppressed rage. Never, ever say anything like that. Weren't you paying attention in orientation? Never say, you think a plane is going to crash. Never say a plane could crash. Never even use the word crash. Do you understand? Okay, whispered Angela. Sorry. But some small rebellious part of her brain was thinking, I didn't use the word crash. Weren't you paying attention to me? And if a plane really was going to run into the building, wouldn't Sky Trails want its employees to warn people? To get them out of the way? Just as rebelliously, Angela kept watching the plane parked at 2B. Instead of bending her head back down to concentrate on her computer. Monique, she said after a few moments, should one of us go over there and help the passengers unload? I mean, deplane? She was proud of herself for remembering to use that official airline sanctioned word for unloading. Beside her, Monique rolled her eyes. The gate agents responsible for 2B, she said in a tight voice, will handle deplaning there. Angela glanced at the 2B counter, which was silent and dark and completely unattended. There wasn't even a message scrolling across the LCD sign behind the counter to indicate that the plane had arrived or where it had come from. Nobody's there, Angela said stubbornly. Frowning, Monique finally glanced up. Great. Just great, she muttered. I always have to fix everyone else's mistakes. She began stabbing her perfectly manicured nails on the keyboard. And then she stopped, mid-stab. Wait, that can't be right. What is it? Monique asked. Monique was shaking her head. Must be pilot error, she said, grimacing in disgust. Some yahoo pulled up to the wrong gate. There's not supposed to be anyone at that gate until the Cleveland flight comes in at 9:30. Angela considered telling Monique that if SkyTrails had banned crash from their employees' vocabulary, that maybe passengers should be protected from hearing pilot error as well. But Monique was already grabbing the telephone and barking out orders. Yeah, Bob, major screw up, she was saying. You've got to get someone over here. No, I don't know which gate it was supposed to go to. How would I know? Do you think I'm clairvoyant? No, I can't see the numbers on the plane. Do you know that it's dark out? With her free hand, Monique was gesturing frantically at Angela. At least go open the door, she hissed. You mean the door to the jetway? Monique said, pointing. Angela hoped that some of the contempt on Monique's face was intended for Bob and not just her. Angela imagined meeting Bob someday, sharing a laugh at Monique's expense. Still dutifully, she walked over to the 2B waiting area, pulled open the door to the hallway that led down to the plane. But nobody came out. Angela picked a piece of lint off her blue skirt and stood at attention, her back perfectly straight, just like in the training videos. Maybe she couldn't keep track of standby codes, but she could keep track of standing up straight. Still, nobody appeared. Angela began to feel foolish, standing so alertly by an open door that no one was using. She bent her head and peeked down the jetway. It was deserted and turned at such an angle she couldn't see all the way down to the plane. So to see if anyone had actually opened the door to the jet yet, she backed up a little, peered out the window, straight down to the cockpit of the plane. The cockpit was dark, its windows blank. And that struck Angela as a bit odd. She'd been on the job for only 5 hours, which is very new, and she'd been a little distracted. But she was pretty sure that when planes landed, the pilot stayed in the cockpit for a while, filling out paperwork or something. She thought that they'd at least waited until the passengers were off before they turned out the cockpit lights. And yet, Angela peeked down the empty jetway once more and went back to Monique. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, so right now, I want you to think about what we read. Okay, I want you to think about what conclusions are you starting to form in your mind? What inferences are you making? What do you know so far about the story, about what the author is telling us? Okay. So while you're thinking that, while you're coming up with those ideas, okay, I want you to think to that. And then if you haven't seen the next, or if you have already heard this, then you're going to click into the next video and watch part 2.